are now going live. And the mics are now live.
Call the meeting to order. You want to, before we adopt this agenda, who is here for public comment? Okay. Great. Because we might do two public comments. We might do one before we go into exec and then after, because I don't know when people are arriving. And several people have expressed an interest in making comments. So let's do Pledge of Allegiance to start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we're going to take a moment to acknowledge a sad situation that occurred in our community with the passing of Maya Gold last week. Just a moment of silence for Maya and her family and friends. Okay, the last time we were here, we thanked the businesses that participated in our Sister Cities program, where we had a visiting community from Nimi, Japan, and we acknowledged the businesses that helped out. So this is a list of the families that provided housing for our visitors. So I'm going to ask Rebecca to read this list and thank these individuals.
Sorry. Cut up here between the rug and the wires.
I know we're going to get this fixed sooner or later, but
You're
not
going to stick a dynamite at some point in the sale, right?
Oh, here it is. He doesn't live? Yeah. There it is. Okay. Sorry about that.
Or Dennis, you want to read this list for us? Just thanking these individuals, the families who hosted.
Sure. Thank you for all who participated in making. Oh, yes. Unanimous. Thank you for all who participated in making the visit for delegates from our sister city so enjoyable. Tom McFerrin Nyquist, Ed Maureen Rogers, Lee Bell and Ravi Shankar, Joan Byers, Patricia Schwartz, Kara Lee, Steve Stan, Mary and Dave Miller, Kathy and Dave Wise, Jane Winters, Marion and Rick Ryan, Vicki Danskin, Dave Cockmo, and Stuart and Ellen Bigley.
And we had one other announcement. We had positive news. We received information that we were awarded a grant related to our Millbrook Preserve project from the Hudson River Valley Greenway. They informed our planner last week that we'll be awarded $5,000 for its trail access enhancements project. So we also we're waiting to see whether our CFA that we applied for in the summertime will be awarded. That we should find out about closer to the end of the year, but this was nice to get this news about a $5,000 award. Before we go into exec, we're going to see if anyone wants to do public comment, because I believe there are folks who are interested in making a few public comments today, so we could do some public comment before exec and then after, depending on who shows up. So anyone here interested in making public comment? Miriam?
Hi, Miriam Strauss. A couple things. Like many people in my neighborhood, I received an anonymous note expressing some concern about the condition of some of the hydrants. And basically, I know my reaction that night was to immediately go home and write a check to the fire department, because it was like, these people need resources. But I guess it's more like, what does the fire department need, and how do they get more PR, and how do they get more help, or how do they get more power to get what they need? I don't know. I'm pretty ignorant about it. The only time I go there is when I give blood. So that's one thing. The other thing is I'd like to invite any members of the board to attend the Pathways to Paris event on the walkway over the Hudson, and also to point out, for anyone who happens to be here as well, that it's been put off for a week because of the prediction of poor weather, of course, which isn't materializing. But never mind, it's going to be Friday the 23rd from 1 to 5, and I won't belabor the point. And I'd also like to give a nod to Sylvia for her loss.
If you want to make public comment because of our new system, if you could use that mic or one for the table, we'd appreciate it.
Oh, sure.
That way it'll be heard on TV and in the room.
Anybody else want to make public comment?
Hi, my name's Kathy Cartagena. Actually, I was waiting for Craig Shankles, but he's running late. We have a lot of concerns about the number of fire hydrants that are not working in the village. I believe there was a problem with the last 2 fires on Mulberry Street, and I live in Town and Country. The fire hydrant outside of there on Huguenot Street is covered, meaning it's not working. There's multiple hydrants in town that are not working. Town and Country is a very big development. It could burn to the ground just like the other ones have, and there could be death. I think that this is something that should be high priority before a lot of other things that we have on the agenda or we're going towards. Life is at risk, and Sylvia lost her complete family, her animals. I don't know what the answer is. I know the infrastructure is supposedly not up to par, but why are we building new developments? Why are we continuing to go for growth when we can't even fix our fire hydrants? So please, if that's something that could be addressed, it really is an emergency. Thank you.
Anybody else? I don't mind giving a quick update on the fire hydrant situation, because I've spoken with Craig and Blue, our DPW superintendent, and there are 4 fire hydrants that are currently offline in our community. One is at the bottom of Lookout, one is at the top of Lincoln, there's one across from, as you mentioned, Town and Country, and there is another one that is at the corner of Prospect and Henry W. So of those 4, 2 of them are expensive propositions that will cost north of $10,000 to fix. The other 2, Blue said he anticipates being able to fix them next week, and he spoke about they could be relatively simple fixes. The hydrants are each inspected twice a year. The next flushing of the hydrants is taking place on Thursday. As it's been described to me, the hydrant at the corner of Mulberry and 32 North is a hydrant that is an older style hydrant. It has a 2.5 or 3-inch valve, and there are 2 of them. And the more updated fire hydrants have 3 valves. They have that size valve, 2 of them, and they also have a larger 5-inch supply line. So that is, my understanding is that's the reason that hydrant was not used during the fire last Monday, and that it was not used during the STS fire. But it is a functional hydrant, and to update a hydrant costs $6,000, and there are a total of 8 hydrants in the village that are of that make. And I completely agree, we should probably take a hard look at inventorying what we have, what could be updated. Craig and I also spoke today about looking hard at creating a policy where anytime a fire hydrant goes offline, depending on the magnitude of its failure, how soon should we get it back online. So that's kind of the top view response based on conversations that I've had about this fire hydrant situation. Anybody else want to make public comment? Miriam, you got to talk in the mic.
Hi, I'd just like to suggest that if you have to prioritize a triage of which hydrants you update, that you sort of use like GIS of population density and possibly overlay that with rental housing, thinking that tenants might be more prone to fires. Thank you.
I can share with you that Blue essentially does that in an unsophisticated way in terms of when there's a hydrant that needs updating, he's mindful of the nearby hydrants and when he works to fix that hydrant. And there are not situations where we have multiple hydrants that are not available. Any other public comments about this topic?
Yeah,
Craig, you got to come use the mic.
So, just quickly, I want to thank Tim for engaging with me and welcoming the conversation on this issue. I still have a couple issues I got to talk about. I was just with the chief, that's why I was a couple minutes late. He's coming up in a couple minutes, so I'm going to ask that we kind of extend till he gets up here, because when I spoke to you today, you thought I wouldn't be speaking until 7:30.
What we discussed is we're willing to do two public comments, one
Okay.
before and after exec. So
That's fine.
everyone
That's all
gets
I
a
need.
chance to voice concerns.
So a couple concerns I have is the channels of communication. Now, you're telling me that that hydrant's working. The chief is still telling me, as of 2 minutes ago, it would be nice if somebody would let him know that. He was told not to use it during the STS fire, which is 11 months ago, and he thinks he can still not use it. So as far as protocols, SOPs, whatever you want to call them, we've got to establish something that makes more sense. You and me have talked about legislating that there's a time period. You thought maybe I should talk to Blue. I don't think I need to talk to Blue. I think you and the trustees talk to Blue. Blue will come up with something that I think is intelligent, reasonable, and acceptable. I have to say I have that sort of trust. The other issue is what you were talking about. I think we have 4 other hydrants, and so it's a moot point to really, or redundant to talk about them anymore, because you started to address it. The other issue I have concern is Bob was at the tanker truck at Huguenot Street in Mulberry, and he didn't have any support from the police department. Me and my pastor jumped in, and we started blocking cars, turning people around. Huguenot Street became like the circus was in town. And I was out there just like all those people driving cars, because I lived down the block. And so the curiosity seekers, like all of us, it was a tragedy. It was horrific. Everybody was concerned. He couldn't leave the truck, and he didn't have a hand radio to call police assistance, because there should have been barricades on that street to stop people. Nobody was difficult when I started turning cars around. He did jump in and started turning, because he was only 10 feet away. But I said, can't you get help? Because I have no way of getting help here. So I don't understand that communication channel between the police department and the fire department. And he said, I have to assume they're all in 32, because you had to lay the lines all the way out to Town Hall, which is thousands of feet. So I don't really think I have much more to really say. The conversation has occurred. The concerns I have, I think, are going to be addressed. I just wanted to speak to your board and the trustees so everybody's aware that my wife said I cannot use this word, but I'm going to, that it's really unacceptable, you know, what's going on in this community. I am seriously concerned about the exposure that we have as a government to lawsuits to the situation if it's not corrected properly. I don't know if anybody here can answer me. I can't seem to find it on the village website. I see it's spoken of what our ISO rating is. Does anybody here know? Everybody here know what an ISO rating is? Yes. Okay. ISO rating is a safety factor that's legislated, whatever. There's rating, I think it's 1 to 10. Depending on when you fall, if we have a crappy rating, the worse the rating, the higher, this affects you directly, the higher your homeowner's insurance is. in this community. So kind of need to know what that is and see how we can get it up if it's not in a good place. But I can't seem to find where it is. So I'm going to ask you to help me. That's one of the questions I have of this village, what our ranking is, okay? The other thing is we probably should at some point start to talk about, and the chief, if he gets here soon, can talk to it about, is that we talk more about a fire district. Fire district at this point, the village carries the burden of the expense of the fire department, even though they fight fires in the town. We carry the heaviest liability on that. If we turn this into a fire district, the town can't own a fire department, but they can share. When it's a district, it'll be run by commissioners. Everybody's a little concerned that the fire department will become a loose cannon and want all kinds of equipment. There's 3 commissioners. They're not going to be insane, but at least at that point, the expense of that fire department is shared with the town residents as well as the village residents. So I have no problem with the job these guys do. This is not an inquisition in any way, shape, or form. I just, we've had the conversation. I'm very concerned about this hydrant issue, and it needs to be, rectified. I don't think I have anything else I want to really speak to, but the chief might want to say a few words in reference to that. And then there's the conversation about turning our fire hydrants into a loop system, which is a system where they're all connected in one big loop, basically, and water is always flowing. The system we have now is, we live in an old community, and so it's somewhat fractured, as Tim was talking about. We have different attachments or whatever. I shared with Tim an incident in Sue's house 12 years ago and something that went on, but that's been legislated at the state level where they have a bag of every kind of adapter, so it doesn't matter if it's not consistent. We don't have to worry about that immediately because every truck now by law is required to carry a pouch that has every freaking tool that carries every size adapter and work. Every hose can work and can be made to work. It's not the best system. There are faster systems. There are slower systems. I think that's a conversation for a later date. There's a system that can probably save a minute of time with hooking up to that water source. It's expensive, but I also learned that on average, a good statistic or a good barometer is a fire on average will spread or double every 30 seconds. So when you talk about hooking up to a fire hydrant and cutting the time down a minute, you cut that fire down to 1/4 of its advancement on whatever structure it's attacking. So they're expensive, but again, we'll look at that. But a loop system would eliminate some of the problems that we have. If you live at the end of Henry Du Bois at Putt Corner's home, Freihaffer ever gets on fire, the fire department you think is right there and they have tankers, the pressure at that point stinks. You're going to get a dribble, I understand, out of the fire hydrants at that point because we don't have a loop system. That water is always running. They're required now, I think, once a year to run a test to make sure they're working. In my opinion, until we have a loop system, that's not adequate. It should be a couple times a year.
The hydrant tests are
yeah,
twice a year.
It is twice a year. So I take that back.
There's one on Thursday.
What's that?
Thursday.
I know we were just talking about that. So we need to address that. There's development of people who want to come into this community. I was a business owner for many years. I don't advocate that, we shut the door to new development. I think it needs to be regulated and watched, and it needs to be practical. But, we need to share that expense so we hopefully can get a better hydrant system in place that's not going to have pressure problems. And I met with the planner, and even though we are an older community, he worked someplace. Where did he work? In New Hampshire, very old town, similar to ours in age. And he said, no, it was one of the issues that they dealt with, and it can be dealt with. So, but at what price? I understand caps, expenses, but I also understand that the risks, the homes, life, limb, whatever you want to call it in this community, is the exposure is ridiculous. So here comes the chief now, and I don't know if you guys want to say anything directly. I talked about the loop system a little bit. You may want to explain that and explain the fire district aspect. And then I talked about the communication about Mulberry and setting up some better SOPs and protocols, because I don't, not my job, but I don't know about that hydrant, if it in fact is working or not, and that you guys are kept in the loop. So that's his job, that's your guys' jobs. I really don't have to say anything more. The communication, I do want to say Tim is sick. I'm surprised to see you here. I opened communications with him the next day, and Tim's been great. Everybody's been great communicating with me and trying to bring me up to speed. But at the end of the day, I just want to start the ball rolling. Then I want to step out, and if anybody needs me, I'll step back in. But that's where I'm at on the issue.
Thanks,
You
Craig.
want to say anything? Anybody have questions? This is the chief. That can answer them better than I can.
Chief, come use the
And
mic.
I'm going to ask you to.
Just to cover that hydrant, I didn't know, I know back during the STS fire, it was brought to our attention after we hit it that the hydrant was out of service. That I did not know that was back in service at this point, so. We also had a water main break during that fire, the village did. I called county right away to see if it was all right, which hydrants I could use and what ones I couldn't, to talk with a DPW, and I had answers back almost immediately on that I could go ahead and use those hydrants. It is an important thing. We're talking about loop systems. The nice thing about loop water is that the water's coming in from both directions. If you're drawing out of a hydrant, you're going to get the water coming in from both ends. Where a dead end line, you're going to get water coming from one direction, and that's it. So it's always a major expense, but a loop system absolutely makes the firefighting so much better. Gives us, basically, you'll never run out of water. I know one of the concerns was that it seemed like we ran out of water, which we did hit the hydrant on Huguenot Street first. We hit the second hydrant on Broadhead and laid in. That first engine to the house had 1,400 gallons of water on it. We dropped our 1,400 gallons of water while we were, that's our SOP, you dump your load and then get hooked up to your supply line. So once you do establish water, you'll never run out again. And basically that's what we did. So if you see the pictures of this fire early into it, there would have been no different outcome no matter how we went about this. This thing was fully involved. We were all sitting downstairs for our monthly meeting. As soon as I seen P&Gs, got the P&Gs, I could see the glow. By the time I got down to the bottom of North Front Street, I already transmitted a second alarm. Everything went fast, and this fire just had a serious head start on us. And at this point, I haven't heard any cause on this fire. We had a real hard time communicating with the residents. He spoke Spanish. We had to get a state trooper in from, I think he came from Lloyd, to try to interpret for us, but he did give the state trooper 5 to 6 different stories, and this trooper came back to me and says, I honestly can't tell you what happened. So it really put us one step backwards for the investigation, because normally when you do investigations, one of your first things you do is interview the people. You know, most of the time the calling party, if somebody was an occupant, you would interview, and that gets you really your basic start to doing a fire investigation.
I had a meeting yesterday with the Corps and all the guys.
Craig, do you mind taking a mic again?
I just want to bring Bob up too. I didn't see you today. I was busy on fundraising thing. I met with the Corps and Origin people yesterday, and it's being classified as undetermined.
As a what?
Which I, undetermined,
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's undetermined.
which I don't think is
Right. I'm sure their insurance company will do another investigation, but, you know, it's just a matter of, it'll be time. They were supposed to meet with the county investigators, and I don't know if that's happened yet. So, but that's the extent of what happened. Now that some discussions going on, I'm going to have to open up some more lines of communications with Blue. Like I said, I didn't know the second closest hydrant was back in service. It was over the winter. So. That,
Sure, you got to come up and use the mic, though.
identify myself. I'm Brian Riddell, property owner at 173 Huguenot Street. I'm hearing two conflicting things. I'm hearing a witness tell me that you ran out of, seriously ran out of water at one point, and you just expressed, at least my understanding was that you never really reached the point where you felt you didn't have enough water to fight the fire?
When the first engine got to the front of the residence, what we did is we hit it with the deck gun. The deck guns only adjust to a certain degree. Well, the lowest degree was hitting the electric line, so we shut that deck gun down, and we went with what we call a blitz nozzle, which is like a portable deck gun, set that up. We ran out of water. I would say it was just a matter of maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes by the time we got the hose from the pumper, the supply pumper to the attack pumper. So, I mean, that's the that would look like we ran out once because we shut the duct gun down, but we hadn't run out of water yet. We still have water on board. It's just we brought the blitz nozzle out, set the blitz nozzle up, and went back to operating.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah, I live on Huguenot Street, about 200 feet from a fire hydrant, which used to give me a sense of comfort, and I'm not sure that remains, because I don't know if that fire hydrant is operating. Did you draw water from the one down by Jewett's Farm? Did you go that far for water?
No, we just used the one on the corner of Mulberry and Huguenot.
Okay, all right. Well, so I'd like to know if the hydrant in front of my house is working.
I stated this earlier, there are
I'm
currently...
sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, no worries. There are 4 hydrants offline currently, one at the bottom of Overlook, one at the top of Lincoln, one near Town and Country on Huguenot, and one at the corner of Henry W. and Prospect.
What was the one in Huguenot?
Near Town and Country.
Near Town and Country, okay. Thank you. In addition to running out of water, the other very alarming aspect of, first of all, I want to thank Craig for his caring and compassion that he's shown towards our fire victim, Sylvia, and then again for taking it another step further, educating himself and now educating us about a serious problem in the town, in the village. Takes extraordinary people to do that, Craig. Thank you. So the idea that fire hydrants out of order, out of service, is a status quo issue is very disturbing. And I understand it's been addressed early in the meeting and steps will be taken to address the chain of command, Department of Public Works and the people they report to, the responsible parties. So I hope that really gets straightened out. I don't know, and returning again to Sylvia, who I've known and is a neighbor, and all that she's gone through in this issue. I heard third party, the way she was treated by a village employee, which I am totally ashamed to say I actually pay that person's salary. Sylvia is in the midst of serious personal and physical damage, and the way she is being treated on her own property, to me, is beyond belief. I didn't know you couldn't pitch a tent on your property. I hope you don't come after me, because I pitch a tent occasionally on property. I don't know why she's being treated this way. The tone and tenor of the person who's dealing with her, again, reaches into the realm of what Craig spoke of as unacceptable. We cannot stand for that as people in this village, having our folks treated that way by public servants, if you will. Thank you.
Anybody else want to make a public comment? Okay. You got to come up and use the mic.
Good evening, everybody. I spoke with the building inspector today, and he apologized by the way he treated me. He said the reason why he thought that there would be problems there is because him and the other guy that works with him saw the word occupied on the tent, and they thought that we were going to start having some kind of bunch of tents there, and that's what he explained to me. That's why he was saying, that they thought we were just going to all tent out and have some kind of a rally.
Oh my God, you borrowed Michelle's tent.
And he also said that I was trying to attract attention, which I didn't ask for any attention. Everyone came by themselves to say they were sorry to see all my stuff go, including my dogs. I felt that in my own property I couldn't do anything whatsoever, including mourn my dogs and stay with my dogs. They told me I couldn't stay in my property. And they gave me 5 days to clean up everything, including the building. I felt really disappointed because I originally thought the letter he gave me was to get rid of tents, the fear of the occupied tents for Michelle. But the letter actually meant to clear everything. And how can you clear a whole fire that just happened 6 days ago in 5 days? It's crazy. I pay $12,000 a year to live there, taxes-wise, and I've never given anybody any problems. I do have some Latinos, number one, because I like to keep my Spanish going, and I speak Portuguese, and I had a Brazilian guy, so I can keep my languages fresh. And I travel a lot, so I like those men to help me watch my property while I'm gone, including my dogs. So the guy that was there, the Guatemalan guy that was there, was supposed to just watch my dogs, that's it, in exchange of food, clothing, whatever he needed, that kind of thing. There was no money exchange here, and my Brazilian guy too, he doesn't work, he just watches football, and Brazilians are very much into football. And I don't know why they had time to move my cars out of the parking lot to the Village Pizza and not take my dogs out. That I don't understand. But I know one of the guys, unfortunately, I heard one of the guys was drinking beer. I haven't really I haven't seen him yet, but that's what happened. So maybe not calling the fire department right away created those big flames. And the reason why the big flames came, I still don't know anything. Because I just came from Brazil. I was just in the airport, and I was on my way up. I was in the city having dinner, and Rebecca Rotzler was on the cell phone with me telling me what was happening. I was told that my dogs were all out, and they were running around and outside in the tree somewhere, and I even heard that one of the dogs was being fed by somebody. So when I came to New Paltz, I was scared, to see the building, but at least I thought my dogs were out. But then I found my dogs all burnt next day. I found them myself, and even the last dog. Nobody would let me look for my dog, so I actually had to look for him in a scared way, because I was told that if I did go to look for my dog, that I was going to get put away. That's what I was told. So, but I still went anyway. I figured I'll look for my dog and I'll get put away. But here I am. Well, Craig's been really helpful, and so has Kathy, and all my community has been really helpful. Everyone has been coming down. I didn't ask for the attention. They all came on their own. So the building inspector, I think, was acting weird. I don't know why, but that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Can I speak again for just a minute?
Sure.
So, in reference to some of the difficulties that were put towards Sylvia from this village building department, I've been fielding most of the insurance stuff, working with Sylvia, and we hired a company to advocate for her, and they're doing a tremendous job. But there is a machine in place that is incredibly bureaucratic. And so whatever you need to do to back off her a little bit, you guys can come after me. And I'm trying to field stuff for her with this company because we're not going to get that lot cleared that quick. It's just the nature of the insurance business and what it takes. So I would just ask. I would ask the chief to speak real quickly. Come on up here for a minute. I learned, and by your own words and your own admission, and this is, again, as I've used the term, this is not an inquisition in any way, but you had said there might have been a minute and a half, but I also understand from our conversation that the situation for Sylvia would not have changed in the loss of that building. But a minute, I probably could have doubled 2 times. But you were educating me, and I just want you to tell people that there is also a device to be able to switch hydrants quickly, hoses and devices in half the time.
You're not going to know the term, I'm sure, but if you want to do homework afterwards. Right now what we have is we have a barrel on a cap on our 4.5-inch barrels. They have this device, it's called a storage fitting. Right now what we have to do is we have to take that barrel cap off, we have to put a storage fitting on, then connect our hose to it. If we just take the caps and replace them with storage fittings, all we have to do is just hook the hose to them. So it would save 1 step, but there's a lot of hydrants and it's going to be very expensive to switch everything over. It's going to cost a lot of money. I have a picture here, just so you can see. This is what I pulled up to. As I backed onto the rail trail, the sergeant on duty was there. I said, could you do me a favor and take a picture with your phone? And this is what I pulled up with, if you want to pass it on. I mean, this thing was totally involved. There's not a part of the house that's not on fire. Yeah, that would be, it would stop 1 step of the hydrant system.
I have a picture where the fire was only in the back, but my whole store was still there.
Well, from the time we got dispatched to the time I was on the scene was less than 2 minutes, and that picture was taken at that time. As soon as.
Also, the first time I had the fire, the first truck didn't have a long enough hose to reach the fire.
You can't equip every truck to meet every driveway. You just can't do it. So we have numerous trucks. One that drops it until once he runs out, then the next truck hooks into it. And that's exactly what we did. And the hose that we ran out on was the hose that went to the ladder truck, which was the second piece in at the call. It wasn't the initial attack engine, which had a line that was coming from Huguenot Street.
I was told that you guys had to go all the way to the town hall to hook up the water.
Yeah, I was told.
Guys, we can't have a back and forth like
Yes,
this.
we did.
Because no one can hear your voice, and we're
She-
just
she
looking
was
for public
talking-
comment right
She was
now.
talking about that the fire department had to hook up a line all the way down at Town Hall to get that continuous flow of water. And I understand that is accurate.
Right. Yeah, and again, that was, we ran out at 600 feet. Modena laid the other 200 feet, and we were doing that line just so Modena would have a supply line to their engine also. So we had a supply coming from Huguenot Street to our attack engine. We wrapped the hydrant on Broadhead on the way in, it fed the ladder truck, which was next to Napa. And Modena was coming in, so we sent the truck down to Veterans Drive, laid from there until we ran out, and then Modena continued to lay, which was exactly 200 feet. But you can't, this hose is expensive, and to even begin to think about putting a lot of feet on there is, and besides that, the beds really aren't big enough to have a whole lot, but 1,000 feet of 5 inches is a lot of hose. The truck that was on Huguenot Street, that has 3,000 feet on it, so, you know, it all depends on what comes. The thing is, too, you have to realize is how the trucks are coming in, how they're calling out. That we were really fortunate that we were sitting in a monthly meeting. I mean, we had 31 guys like that.
May I ask a question? I was told that
You want to repeat the question, Chief?
Right. The question is that the water in some of the trucks doesn't last very long. That's the truth. The truck that was in front of the house had 1,400 gallons of water on it, which is that's a very big tank for an attack engine. Most trucks who are in a hydrant district normally carry 500 gallons of water. So that truck had 1,400 gallons of water on it. We had a lot on that first truck in. We have two attack engines, one that has 1,400 gallons of water on it, one that has 1,000. We do have a truck that carries 2,500 gallons of water, but it's a tanker, and that only responds outside the hydrant district. But since we had so many guys that night, the tanker did respond, and it fed the ladder truck before the lay was completed by Modena. So we did utilize that 2,500 gallons that night also.
What kind of flow rate does that have?
I'm sorry?
What kind of flow rate usually, how long would that last?
Well, the engine in front of the house has a 1,500 gallon a minute pump, so that's less than a minute.
Right.
Most of the trucks are equipped with 1,500 gallons, except for the supply pumpers, the 1,750. And you always want the bigger pump supplying the smaller pump so you don't run out.
So just to put this in perspective, and I'm not picking on anybody, Chief. So if we're looking at a minute and a half, that baby's empty. How long do you think it took to run from Veterans Drive to that tanker? Just to get a sense.
I would say maybe they'd have to drive down to Veterans Drive, turn around, get out of the truck, wrap the hydrant, drive down there, 3-4 minutes.
Okay. So I'm just trying, I'm not trying to make trouble, I'm just trying to say, put it in perspective. What these guys are dealing with when they don't think they have a hydrant, in this case, that they can use. So that's the risk and the exposure and the problem that brought me here today and asked these people to join us, because it's not fair.
Got it. Okay, so
It's not really the fire department, it's the water department, isn't it, that is in charge of the hydrant?
it's the DPW that's in charge of the hydrants.
So it's not them.
Right.
No, definitely not.
So, Katie, I want to put a few things on our comeback list. Let's find out what our ISO rating is. Let's also, I'm drawing a blank on some other near-term.
What would it cost, and what's the engineering for a loop system?
In our safety system, or safety rating.
Right, and we have,
What's the ISO rating?
and we have 8 of the older style hydrants, so we need to figure out how much it would cost to update those. Blue gave me an estimate on the 2 of the 4 hydrants that are offline, the one on Henry W. and Prospect, and then the other challenging one at Huguenot across from Town and Country. Then the other 2, Lookout and the top of Lincoln, those should be less expensive. So we can put these items on a comeback list, especially as we're approaching budget season, to see what we want to spend money on.
And I did text Blue during the meeting to ask him about the ISO rating in the hopes that we would hear back from him.
Got it. Okay.
There was one other issue that I think we should check on, that's the,
Let's wait. If you want to.
I have good hearing.
Tom was going to add one other thing to our list.
The communication between the fire and the police department, I think we should do some checking on that.
Okay.
And I have one other item, Tim. In addition to the mechanical and the procedural and process and communication issues, we've had a desire for some human kindness, and I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for the tragedy and the loss on Mulberry Street. Thank you.
Okay, we have our last public comment.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what is the current status of the property today? Is it considered unsafe for anybody? You know, like, do you know? Is it?
I don't know if you've spoken to the building department since I was here midday. I'm sorry, Tim's been sick and Richard was.
I'm not picking anybody.
Yeah, no,
and I know most of
I
y'all.
just want to explain what took place today and yesterday.
All right.
He has been very ill and was not going to come to the meeting and then decided at the last minute. But I came in yesterday afternoon, later in the day, to speak with the building department to see status coming out after a holiday weekend. I spoke to. I spoke to Brian, our building inspector, who informed me of the basically list of violations, a one-page document that he had taken to Sylvia. We had a conversation. He basically filled me in as to what had happened. Another inspector, as Sylvia explained, had gone by and was concerned with the tents and everything else, also because the tents were within the area that has been roped off. So from there I went to Sylvia to see what had actually transpired from the other side and spoke to a number of the neighbors and friends who were there. I came back today and basically spent half the day in Village Hall, also taking care of some other issues, but we had the conversation again, and I basically just gave the perspective of what people felt had transpired and on the property, and he apologized, and today following that he sent a letter to definitely Tim and I'm not sure if the entire board was on it, but he did address the fact that he felt that he needed to give more time and not react by the letter of the law in terms of what he had issued. So,
and the restrictions that seem to be being placed on Sylvia going through the debris, unless she's really risking her life doing that, the village code allows.
There's no restrictions or requirements that she's supposed to clean the site within 5 days. That was
Right,
incorrect
that's- yeah.
information. He asked that she remove the tents and pick up some of the
Yeah,
litter
I'm
within
actually
5 days.
going-
And that what he was mostly looking for was just a time frame to work with the
I'm just going to
cleaning up
another.
of the
I'm
site.
going to another issue, but
Okay.
that's cool.
I have a letter.
The village code itself provides for gives two people the right to go on the fire damaged property, and one being the owner, and the other being, I forget which official, who can authorize other people to come on the property at that point. But Sylvia is primary in terms of access and allowance regarding her property. And just another thing, just to add to the list of stratagems, Tim, the question of interpretation came up, in the middle of the emergency, and the lack of an interpreter seemed to create further delay in the operation. So I guess if, there are interpreters available or interpreter services, or you had that sort of a volunteer maybe in the community, I don't know, that's how I've worked it in different organizations I've been involved in. But we really need to begin to give heed to the multicultural society that we're now in. An interpreter would be, I think at this point, an absolute must, at least in terms of your strategies.
Thanks. You want to come up, Sylvia? You can, so we can hear you.
I have a letter that it wasn't just my tents that needed to be removed, everything needed to be removed. And I have the letter if you want to see it. Also, every single restaurant in New Paltz hires all these guys. Every single one. P&G's, Bacchus, Tokyo Sushi, all of them, because they pay them less money. So businesses want these Mexicans to work for them. but then they don't want to see them after they're done with their work, I guess. And it's unfair. But they work really hard for your restaurants. Very hard. All of them do. Just wanted to say that, Thank you.
Okay. Wanted to move forward. So with this consent agenda, we're removing number 18.
Please, if we can remove number 18 and also take into consideration the number 19, if the board wants to pass it, they're requesting that you waive the deposit fee and that you waive the insurance. I did speak to the village attorney prior to this meeting, and he said that that would be something, if you wanted to do, would be perfectly fine.
Are we fine with that regarding number 19 as a board?
I don't think I know what it is. Say again what it is?
So there's a...
I see what the item is. What's
Yep.
the issue?
So students are organizing a walk to recognize the loss of Maya Gold from the middle school to the Hasbrook Park.
Okay, I saw the request for that.
And we would be waiving the requirement for insurance.
That's what I think I
Event
did.
insurance.
That's what I was asking
Mhm.
about. So we're being asked to approve something that requires us to do so with the knowledge that we're waiving insurance.
Correct.
And what else is there? Was there one other?
They're looking to waive the park request.
The
fee.
park request.
Katie, could you use the mic and explain what you heard from when you asked Attorney Frank about this?
I called Will Frank yesterday to make him aware of this last-minute request, and that the last-minute request included the waiving of the deposit and the insurance, so that he could advise the board if he had any feelings on the matter. I also copied him on the park use request when it was sent out to the board, and Mr. Frank said that it would be that if the board so chose to waive the insurance waiver, the insurance, it would be all right.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda excluding item 18 and then adding a condition to 19 that we're waiving a fee and an insurance requirement.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion we go into exec session for the purposes of interviewing.
Second.
And personnel?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the really open, focused on this kind of meeting.
for officer, there was transparency. I just turned the microphones off so people's conversations could be heard. People will go more candid when the board's not in the room.
With that, Tom motion to go out of exec, seconded by Rebecca. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Terry Duncan to the Zoning Board of Appeal.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion that we hire Christina Karp as our Planning and Zoning Secretary, starting tomorrow at $17 an hour.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Would anybody else, we said early on that we would be open to additional public comment if anybody wanted to say anything.
Hi, my name is Kathy Joyner, resident of New Paltz for, almost 20 years now. It's come to my attention a couple of different things that has happened with Sylvia, in which I think that the village, the town of New Paltz needs to address. I think, as the mayor, you need to come up with a package, a protocol, whatever, where the firemen that are involved, the police officers that are involved at the beginning have not only sensory training, but also what is to be expected and what is allowed to do. I didn't know before 5 minutes ago that the police were involved in the bearing of her dogs, which has me up to here with just I love New Paltz. I absolutely love New Paltz. I decided to move to New Paltz because of the community that outpoured to me with my son's death, because of everything that's happened. I love New Paltz. But the administration of New Paltz and what has happened to this woman in a week has me disgusted. And I really think that you need to come up with a package where all the police that are involved, all the firemen that are involved, all the village inspectors, everyone under your administration comes up and knows, number one, how to be sensitive to someone who just lost everything, and number two, allows certain things. I know there's a letter to the law, and I know there's a reason for all the laws, but there's an exception to everything. To not allow her to walk across her property to bury her dogs is insane, that there were young police officers stopping her. That is insane. The letter that she received in front of me, someone she's met twice in her life, and the things that man said out loud to people of the community is insane. You need to have some kind of meeting where everyone under your administration learns how to talk to people. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to make a comment? Okay. I'd like to motion that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.